Frank was 74 and he fell 3 times in 1 year. Not dramatic falls. Each one was the same. He'd get up from the couch, from the edge of the bed in the morning, from his chair after Sunday dinner, take a step or two, and the room would tilt, gray out at the edges, and down he'd go. A bruised hip the first time, a gash on his forehead the second. The third one put him in the hospital overnight. Everyone had a theory. He was getting old. He was unsteady. Maybe it was his balance. Maybe, and his daughter was terrified of this one, maybe it was the start of something in his brain because twice he'd seemed confused and foggy for a minute or two afterward. They talked about a walker. They talked about him not living alone anymore. Nobody did the one simple thing that would have found it in about 5 minutes. Nobody took his blood pressure lying down and then took it again right after he stood up. Because if they had, they'd have seen it drop like a stone. Frank's blood pressure was falling more than 40 points every single time he got to his feet, so far, so fast, that for a few seconds his brain was being starved of blood. That's what the gray out was. That's what the confusion was. That's what put him on the floor. Frank didn't have a balance problem exactly. And he certainly didn't have dementia. Frank had a plumbing problem. And the thing driving most of it was sitting in his own medicine cabinet. I'm Dr. Adrian Hale. If you watched the balance video a few days back, the one where I had you stand on one leg, think of this as part 2. Because we talked then about balance as a whole system, the inner ear, the eyes, the nerves, the muscles, all keeping you upright. Today I want to zoom in on one specific, incredibly common and very fixable cause of unsteadiness and falls that hides inside all of that. It's called orthostatic hypotension. That's a mouthful, so let's use plain words. It means your blood pressure drops when you stand up. Every one of us has a system that's supposed to catch that drop instantly. In a lot of older adults, that system gets sluggish, and for a few seconds after you rise, your brain doesn't get enough blood. Here's why this matters enough to give it a whole video. It is common. By the time you're over 70, studies put it somewhere around 1 in 3 older adults, depending on how you measure it, 1 in 3. It causes falls, and we've spent this whole series talking about how a single fall can end someone's independence. It's linked, in the long run, to cognitive decline and dementia, through a mechanism I'll explain, and with honest caveats, because the evidence there is real but genuinely mixed, and I'll tell you exactly where. And here's the part that should give you hope, because it's the reason I built the video around it. It is often fixable. Sometimes with changes, you can make this week for free, and very often, more often than anyone tells you, the single biggest driver is a medication or a combination of medications that can be adjusted by your doctor, not stopped by you, adjusted by them. So here's my promise, same as every week, the honest version, the strong evidence and the shaky evidence, both. A simple check you can do at home to find out if this is even your problem. And a clear plan, including the exact conversation to have with your doctor, and the exact question to ask, because this is one of the most underchecked things in all of senior medicine. Let's start by finding out if this is even happening to you. Before anything else, one rule, and I need you to actually follow it. Because the irony of this condition is that testing for it is exactly when people fall. Do this near a sturdy chair, a bed, or a kitchen counter. Something you can drop back down onto or grab in half a second. If at any point the room swims, you feel faint, or your vision goes gray, sit down immediately. Don't push through it. There are no points for being brave here. All right, there are 2 things I want you to notice, and then I'll tell you how to get a real measurement. First, the symptom check. Just pay attention the next few times you stand. When you get up from bed in the morning, from your chair, from the couch, do you feel any of these in the first several seconds? Lightheaded, or like the room briefly moves. A dark or gray dimming at the edges of your vision, like a curtain starting to close. A wave of unsteadiness, needing to grab something. A whooshing or a fuzzy-headed feeling that passes after a moment. Sometimes just a strange, brief fatigue or a fog. If you get any of those regularly on standing, that's the signal. Write yes in the comments and keep watching because there's a lot you can do about it. Now here's the twist. And it's the most important thing in this section. You might feel nothing at all, and still have this. In fact, research has found that around 2/3 of older adults with a significant blood pressure drop on standing don't feel dizzy at all. Their pressure plummets, their brain dips, but they've lost the warning signal. And those are often the people who fall the hardest because they get no heads up. So, I don't feel dizzy does not rule this out. That's exactly why we measure. Which brings us to the real test. And you need a blood pressure monitor for this one. If you have one of those home arm cuff monitors, and if you're over 70, honestly, you probably should. Here's how you check for this properly. It's the same thing a good doctor does. Lie down or sit fully reclined and rest for 5 minutes. Genuinely rest. Then take your blood pressure and note the numbers. Now stand up, near your counter, hand ready. Wait about 1 minute on your feet, then take it again. And if you can, take it once more at 3 minutes. Here's what you're looking for. If the top number drops by 20 or more, or the bottom number drops by 10 or more, between lying down and standing, that's the medical definition of orthostatic hypotension. That's your answer. Write your two numbers down. Both readings, lying and standing. Because that little piece of paper, handed to your doctor, is worth more than a dozen vague appointments where you just say, I feel dizzy sometimes. You're handing them the diagnosis. Now let me show you why this happens. Because once you understand the mechanism, everything about the fix makes sense. Here's something you've done 500,000 times and never once thought about. Standing up is a genuine engineering problem, and your body solves it automatically every single time. Think about what happens the instant you rise. You've got this tall column, your body, and a pump in the middle of it, your heart. The moment you stand, gravity yanks a big slug of your blood downward, pooling it into your legs and your belly. Something like a soda can's worth, half a liter, drops toward your feet in a second or two. For that one moment, less blood is coming back up to your heart, so your heart has less to pump. So the pressure at the top of the column, up in your brain, the highest and most demanding point, briefly falls. Now, in a healthy young body, you never notice, because there's a beautiful automatic system that catches it. Pressure sensors in your neck arteries. They're called baroreceptors. Feel the dip instantly in less than a heartbeat. They fire a signal to the brain which fires back orders. Squeeze the blood vessels tight to push the blood back up and speed the heart up to pump harder. The whole correction happens in under a second before you're even fully upright. The column repressurizes. Your brain never misses a beat. That reflex is the hero of this story. And here's what goes wrong as we age. The sensors get less sensitive. The baroreceptors dull with age. They feel the drop later and respond weaker. The vessels get stiffer. Aging blood vessels don't clamp down as sharply on command. The squeeze is weaker. The heart is slower to answer. The heart rate response gets blunted, especially if you're on certain medications. Hold that thought. It's coming, and there's less fluid in the tank. Older adults are very often mildly underhydrated, and your thirst signal fades with age, so there's simply less blood volume to work with to begin with. Put those together, and you get a system that's slow on the draw. You stand, gravity pulls the blood down, and the correction that's supposed to be instant lags. For 3, 5, 8 seconds, the pressure up in your brain stays too low. The brain, which is greedy for blood and tolerates a shortage very poorly, dips into a mild oxygen debt. And that is the gray out. That's the lightheadedness. That's the moment Frank went down. It's not mysterious at all once you see it. It's just a repressurizing system that got old and slow. Now, why does that matter beyond the dizzy moment? 2 reasons. The immediate one and the long-term one. The immediate danger, the fall. This is the obvious one, and we've built the whole series around it. So I'll be brief, but I won't be gentle, because it matters. When your brain browns out for a few seconds mid-stand, you lose the 2 things that keep you on your feet, your balance and sometimes your consciousness. Best case, you wobble and grab the counter. Worst case, you go straight down, and at our age, going down means a broken hip, a head injury, a hospital stay, and far too often the beginning of the end of independent living. And remember the cruel twist. The people who don't feel the warning dizziness are the ones who fall hardest because they get no chance to grab anything. Their brain dips and their legs simply stop working, with no notice at all. This is why orthostatic hypotension shows up over and over in the fall research. It's one of the most common treatable causes of falls in older adults, and one of the most frequently missed because nobody takes the 2 blood pressure readings that would reveal it. The whole fall gets written off as unsteady or getting old, and the actual fixable cause goes undiagnosed for years. The long-term danger, the brain. And here's where I keep my promise about honesty. Now, the deeper concern, and I'm going to give you both sides, because this is exactly the kind of claim that gets exaggerated online. The worry is this. If your brain is getting briefly starved of blood every single time you stand, and you stand dozens of times a day, thousands of times a month, for years, could all those tiny episodes of low blood flow add up to damage over time? There's a real mechanism behind the worry. It's called cerebral hypoperfusion, a fancy term for not enough blood getting to the brain. And it's genuinely implicated in cognitive decline. And several large studies have found a link. In the Rotterdam study, which followed people for as long as 25 years, those who had orthostatic hypotension at the start had about a 15% higher risk of developing dementia over the decades that followed. Other big studies, including the long-running ARIC study, have also tied a blood pressure drop on standing to higher dementia risk down the line. So that's the concerning half. Here's the honest other half, the part the scary headlines leave out. The evidence is mixed, and I won't pretend otherwise. That same ARIC study that linked orthostatic hypotension to dementia did not find a clear link to the more gradual cognitive decline you'd expect if it were slowly eroding the brain. And that's a genuine puzzle the researchers themselves flagged, which opens up a real possibility that for some people the blood pressure drop isn't causing the brain problem at all. It might instead be an early warning sign of it, because the same nervous system wear and tear that eventually shows up as certain kinds of dementia, Parkinson's-related dementia, Lewy body dementia, can also damage the blood pressure reflex early on. In other words, the wobbly blood pressure and the future brain trouble might both be symptoms of the same underlying process, rather than one causing the other. So here's how I'd want you to hold it honestly. Orthostatic hypotension is clearly associated with dementia risk down the line. Whether it causes some of that risk or is mostly an early flag for it is not settled. Probably it's a bit of both, and it likely depends on the person. But, and this is the key point, it doesn't change what you should do at all. Whether the low blood pressure is damaging the brain, or waving a flag about the brain, or just threatening to put you on the floor next Tuesday, the response is identical. Find out if you have it and fix what's fixable. There is no version of this where ignoring it is the right move. So let's fix it. Now we get to the part I promised you at the very start, and it's the part that ties this whole series together. For a huge number of older adults with this problem, the single biggest driver isn't aging vessels or a lazy reflex. It's a medication, or even more often, several medications ganging up. Let me walk you through the usual suspects, and I want to be crystal clear before I name a single one. Do not touch any of these on your own. I'm not telling you to stop anything. I am giving you a list to bring to your doctor. Some of these medicines are genuinely important, even life-saving. The goal is never to quit them. It's to have a professional look at the whole combination and ask whether it can be adjusted, switched, retimed, or fine-tuned. That's a doctor's job, and it's often a very solvable one. Hold that thought the entire time I'm talking. Blood pressure medications. This is the big one, and it has a bitter irony to it. The pills prescribed to lower your blood pressure can, in some people, lower it too well when you stand up. Water pills, diuretics like furosemide and hydrochlorothiazide are common culprits because they lower the fluid volume in your system, which is exactly the tank you need, full to repressurize on standing. Certain other pressure medicines can blunt the very reflex that's supposed to catch the drop. This does not mean your blood pressure medication is bad or that you should stop it. Controlling blood pressure prevents strokes and saves lives. It means the dose, the type, or the timing might need tuning so it protects your heart without dropping you on the floor. Only your doctor can thread that needle. But it's very often threadable. Prostate medications. Here's one that surprises people. A class of drugs called alpha blockers. Names like doxazosin, terazosin, tamsulosin, used for an enlarged prostate, work by relaxing smooth muscle. Trouble is, they relax the smooth muscle in your blood vessel walls too, which is the opposite of the clamping down you need when you stand. These are well known for causing exactly this problem, especially with the first dose or dose increase. And now the callback, the anticholinergics. If you've been watching this channel, your ears should prick up here. Remember the medications I've talked about before, the ones linked to memory problems, the bladder drug oxybutynin, the old antidepressant amitriptyline used for nerve pain and sleep, certain antidepressants and others in that family. Well, here they are again, because many of those same anticholinergic drugs also interfere with the nervous system signals that control your blood pressure on standing. So a single medication can be doing double damage, dulling the memory and dropping the pressure. And when someone is on several of them at once, the exact anticholinergic burden problem, the effects stack. This is the same web of medications showing up in a second room of the house, and the others, some medications for Parkinson's, some heart rhythm drugs, certain antidepressants beyond the ones I named, even the erectile dysfunction drugs. A number of common medicines can nudge blood pressure down on standing. Alcohol makes all of it worse. And here's the real-world killer. It's rarely any one of these. It's the combination. Frank, from the start of this video, was on a water pill, a blood pressure pill, and a prostate pill. Each one reasonable on its own, but together they'd quietly dismantled his ability to stand up without browning out. No single doctor visit had ever looked at all three side by side and added them up. That adding up, that's the whole fix. And it has a name, a medication review. It's the single most valuable thing that can come out of this video, and I'll tell you exactly how to ask for it in a moment. Here's your plan. Some of this you can start today for free. The most powerful step needs your doctor, in order of importance. 1. Get the medication review. This is the big one. Take that piece of paper with your 2 blood pressure numbers, lying and standing, and make an appointment specifically to review your medications. Bring everything, every prescription, every over-the-counter product, every supplement, in a bag if you have to. And say this sentence, because it's the one that gets action. I'm getting dizzy or unsteady when I stand up. My blood pressure drops when I stand, and I want to review whether any of my medications could be causing it. That specific request puts the doctor or pharmacist on exactly the right track. They can look at the whole combination, something no single prescription decision ever does, and consider adjusting a dose, switching to a gentler alternative, changing when you take something, or in some cases stopping a drug you no longer need. This is a well-worn path in good geriatric medicine. It is often astonishingly effective, and it is completely off limits for you to do alone. Ask for it. Let them do it. 2. Stand up in stages, starting right now for free. This one you can use today and it works immediately. Don't launch out of bed or bolt out of your chair. Break it into steps. From lying, sit up on the edge of the bed first. Sit there for a full minute. Let your system catch up. Pump your feet, wiggle your ankles, clench your calf muscles a few times to push blood back up, then stand. And once you're up, pause another few seconds with a hand on something solid before you walk. This staged rising gives that slow, old reflex the extra time it needs. It's simple, it's free, and for a lot of people, it's the difference between a wobble and a fall. 3. Fill the tank, fluid and salt. Remember, low blood volume makes everything worse. Most older adults are running mildly dry, so unless your doctor has told you to restrict fluids, and some people with heart or kidney conditions are told exactly that, which is why you check first, aim to drink water steadily through the day. Here's a specific trick with real evidence behind it. Drinking a large glass of cool water fairly quickly can temporarily raise standing blood pressure within minutes. Some people use it as a tool before they get up in the morning. And salt, counterintuitively, many people with this condition are told by their doctor to increase their salt a little, because salt helps hold fluid in the system. But that one absolutely must be cleared with your doctor first, because if you have heart failure or high supine blood pressure, extra salt is the wrong move. So, fluids yes for most, salt only with the green light. 4. Compression and the little physical tricks. Waist-high compression stockings, the medical kind, not the loose drugstore socks, physically stop blood from pooling in your legs and belly when you stand. Some people find them a hassle to get on, but they genuinely work. And there are counter maneuvers you can do the moment you feel a spell coming on. Cross your legs and squeeze them together hard, tense your thigh and buttock muscles, clench your fists, or bend forward. Each of these physically squeezes blood back toward your heart and brain and can abort a gray out in seconds. Worth practicing near your counter so they're automatic when you need them. 5. The environmental fixes. A few small things stack up. Raise the head of your bed slightly. Sleeping with your upper body a bit elevated actually helps your system in the morning, the worst time for this. Be extra careful after big meals, because blood diverts to your gut for digestion and can leave less for standing. The after Sunday dinner stand is a classic danger moment, which is exactly when Frank fell. Go carefully in hot weather and hot showers, since heat dilates your vessels and worsens the drop, and avoid alcohol before standing a lot, because it dilates vessels and dehydrates you at the same time. That's the whole toolkit. The stage, standing, and the fluids you can start tonight. The medication review is the phone call that changes everything. Most orthostatic dizziness is the slow, manageable kind we've been discussing, but some of it is a signal of something that needs prompt attention. See a doctor soon, and for the first two, urgently. If you have, actually fainting, fully passing out, not just feeling faint. Any true loss of consciousness needs to be evaluated because it can point to a heart rhythm or heart problem, not just a blood pressure dip. Dizziness with chest pain, a racing or pounding heartbeat, or shortness of breath, that combination points at the heart and shouldn't wait. A fall where you hit your head, especially if you take any blood thinner, that's a same-day call regardless of how you feel afterward. New or rapidly worsening symptoms, particularly if they come along with new tremor, stiffness, changes in handwriting, or trouble with your bladder and bowels, because that cluster can point toward a nervous system condition that needs proper diagnosis. Dizziness that's there all the time, not just on standing, that's a different problem and needs a different workup, likely the inner ear or something else entirely. The everyday version is the brief gray out right as you rise that passes in a few seconds. The versions above, fainting, chest symptoms, a head strike, or a whole new cluster of neurological changes, those are the phone in your hand kind. Let me take you back to Frank. His daughter, on a hunch after reading something a lot like this, bought a blood pressure cuff and checked him one morning, lying down, then standing. She watched the top number fall more than 40 points in real time, and watched him grab the dresser. She had a number, she took it to his doctor. They reviewed his medications, all of them together for the first time. They adjusted the water pill. They changed the timing of another. They switched the prostate medication to a gentler one. They had him rising in stages and drinking more water. Not one dramatic intervention. A handful of small, careful, professional adjustments. Frank hasn't fallen since. He still lives in his own home. The walker went back in the closet. The man his family had been quietly preparing to move out of independent living just needed someone to take his blood pressure twice, once lying, once standing, and to add up what was in his medicine cabinet. And that's the thread that's run through all 4 of these videos, hasn't it? The hearing that got mistaken for a failing mind, the balance that was quietly holding up everything else, the eyesight nobody thought to check, and now the blood pressure that drops when you stand, dismissed as unsteady, blamed on age, when the real answer was measurable in 5 minutes and often fixable in 1 appointment. Here's what I want you to carry out of this one. Before you accept dizzy when I stand as just part of getting old, measure it and count what's in the cabinet, because so often this isn't aging at all. It's a slow reflex and a stack of pills, and both of those have answers. Your brain needs a steady supply of blood every time you rise. Let's make sure it's getting it. 2 things. In the comments, tell me your age and tell me, do you get that gray out or lightheaded feeling when you stand? And if you own a blood pressure cuff and you check your lying and standing numbers, come back and tell me what you found. I read every comment, and those 2 numbers tell me a lot about who's watching and what to cover next. And if you have a parent or a husband or a wife who's been having mystery falls or who grabs the furniture every time they get up, do the thing Frank's daughter did. Don't panic them. Just take their blood pressure lying down, then standing, and see if it drops. If it does, you may have just found the cause everyone missed. Send them this video and check it together. Every study I mentioned is in the description, including the honest ones where the dementia link came out mixed, because you deserve to see those too. Next week we stay with blood pressure, but we flip it around completely. The surprising truth that for a lot of people over 75, blood pressure that's too low, or medication that's pushing it too low, may be quietly doing more harm than blood pressure that's a little high. It's one of the biggest shifts in how doctors think about this, and almost nobody over 75 has heard it. Until then, rise slowly, drink your water, and count what's in that cabinet. I'll see you next week.